which included the increasing critical literature about human rights issues in Islam, China, and the Far East. And my principally, as I said, the principal complaint, it did include a complaint about Charlie Hebdo, but the principal complaint was about the fact that I had referred students to the authoritative academic literature. And the student who complained was the president of BRISOC, the University of Bristol Islamic Society, who was a medical student who had not attended any of the course himself, and he claimed to be acting on behalf of anonymous students. And there were all kinds of other procedural irregularities in the complaint, but the university decided to entertain it anyway. Okay. And I was exonerated after a 5-month inquiry. Then the university said, well, they were publicly announced. They took the module off the syllabus.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 a.m. on Thursday the 31st of July, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Christopher Hope, and Miriam Cates.
Yes, British airport chaos. Major travel hubs were paralysed yesterday after a tech outage left thousands of passengers stranded. So, do air traffic control bosses have questions to answer?
Great question. And that comes as Sir Keir Starmer is ready to welcome the biggest expansion of Britain's airports for half a century as Heathrow Airport prepares plans for a third runway. But honestly, what's the point of all this if the technical glitches continue?
And a population boom. England and Wales saw their population soar by over 700,000 people last year as net migration fueled the second biggest population rise in 75 years. So we'll be asking, is Britain bursting at the seams?
Disorder at the border. 900 migrants across the channel in dangerously overloaded boats yesterday, pushing the total number arriving past a whopping 25,400 just this year.
Yes, you're watching migrant housing resistance. More than 1,000 anti-immigration protesters took to the streets of Waterlooville in Hampshire to oppose government plans to house asylum seekers in brand new apartments.
Surveillance Britain. The Met Police will double its use of live facial recognition cameras as the force loses 1,400 officers. Is this another step closer towards Big Brother Britain? That was surprising. I thought Labour were adding police on numbers, not taking them away, Miriam.
It all depends on whether they're counted as Bobby's on the beat or Bobby's in the office, doesn't it? I'm not sure. But, you know, it's really interesting, this facial recognition technology, because you can see the purpose of it in things like airports, where you do need to know in real time who people are. But it's a bit creepy, isn't it, thinking that your every move is being watched when you're out and about on the high street, for example. Also, it means someone's got to watch all that footage. You can't just leave it on and hope it triggers. You've got to be someone available, watching, pay attention, and you can't, if you rely too much on tech, things get through. And this big boost in migration numbers in the final year there of the Tory government, the Boris Johnson wave, they call it. And of course, you were around in Parliament at the time. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I remember when that first year of post-Brexit immigration figures came out, the absolute shock, because, of course, everybody knew that a new points-based system was introduced, how that would work in terms of skilled visas. But when those numbers were actually published, how many visas were actually issued, absolutely astonishing. Of course, a total betrayal of the democratic will. People have been voting for lower immigration since the 1990s.
Well, the Tories have promised it through 4 elections.
Absolutely.
I guess they just felt that post-COVID we need to get the NHS staffed up properly.
I think it was a cock-up. I mean, I think they decided on the wage that they would set as a skilled migrant wage, which was very low, ridiculously low, 26,000. It should have been double that probably. But nevertheless, the Home Office did not predict, or could not predict, how many people would then apply for visas. So I don't think anybody deliberately sat there thinking, how do we get 750,000 people to come to the country? It was literally a very, very bad idea to set the amount so low, the salary so low.
They picked up the scale of those arriving over 2 years. A huge number arrived. Also in government, and you weren't in government, but you knew people in government inside the Tory party. You got the Treasury pushing for more numbers to come through for economic growth. Home Office saying, hang on, are you sure? I'm sure DCLG saying where they're going to live.
Yeah.
I mean, so it goes on. No one is gripping it.
Exactly, and I think people also didn't appreciate just how many dependents this new wave of migrants would bring. It's far more than the old EU migration. People didn't bring as many dependents, or students didn't used to bring as many dependents. That's changed as well. That surprised people. But
numbers forecast to come down to 250,000 by 2028. So Labour can then say, Miriam, they're delivering on cutting migration. That is now as a line ahead of the next general election. Labour will say we cut migration by 3/4 compared to the Tories. That's a problem for the Tory party.
It is. Maybe it'll work for them, but I still think people think that number itself is too high. So we'll see.
It's population of Coventry.
Anyway, it is. Let us know what you think. Send your views and post your comments on gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Hello, very good morning to you from the newsroom. The top story just after 9:30. Canada has joined the UK and France in pledging to recognise a Palestinian state if they say key conditions are met. But Prime Minister Mark Carney insists Hamas must be excluded from power. Meanwhile, dozens of Palestinians have been killed while waiting for food aid in northern Gaza, with authorities there blaming Israeli gunfire. Hospital officials report at least 48 are dead as the UN warns famine is unfolding. 5 Conservative MPs are demanding an urgent meeting with the Home Secretary as concerns mount over the growing use of hotels for asylum seekers. Suella Braverman warns it could overwhelm public services. It comes after nearly 900 migrants crossed the Channel yesterday, bringing the total to 25,400 this year. Ryanair and EasyJet are demanding air traffic control reform after what airlines have described as outrageous disruption. Over 150 UK flights were grounded after a radar glitch. It's the second major failure in less than a year. Junior doctors are set to return for talks with the government after a 5-day strike. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says no more pay talks, but working conditions will be discussed. And firms paying invoices late could face multi-million-pound fines under new government plans. Sir Keir Starmer says it's time to pay up, with new powers for Small Business Commissioner to enforce stricter payment deadlines. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 10.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Britain's Newsroom. My first time doing this show, and I couldn't have a better host than Miriam Cates. We're live across the UK on GB News. I'm Christopher Hope, and this is Miriam Cates. We're in for Andrew and Bev.
That's right, and I know you've not done it before, I have, but I'm still fairly new. So this is definitely the apprentice show today, but hopefully we can do our best. Well, our top story today is that migration has fueled the second largest population jump in England and Wales for more than 75 years. Now, demographer Paul Morland says we shouldn't blame immigrants. Take a listen to this.
You say you don't want immigration, that you're not prepared to have your own children. If you say you want the country to reflect your values and your tradition and your heritage, but you're not going to have any kids, don't complain. You bring in immigrants to do the jobs that need to be done, and then you complain about ethnic change.
That's Paul Morland there.
I think he's got a very good point. The UK's birth rate has been below replacement since the 1970s, and that's been one of the biggest drivers to get new young people, immigrants, into our country to work in the economy. Now,
what does that mean, below replacement? How many children do we need to have? OK,
so in a developed country where the vast majority of children survive to adulthood, each woman needs to have, on average, 2.1 children. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean everybody has to have children, but, you know, on average, it needs to be that many, so that you've got as many people born as dying, as many people entering the workplace as retire each year. And we've been below that since the 1970s. So a really good example of this is in 1985, there were 10 20-year-olds for each 6 60-year-olds. Now that's halved. There are 5 20-year-olds for each 6-olds. So you can see why we need more people to come into our economy.
Added to that, the people are living longer,
Yep.
and there's fewer workers to support the state pension to pay them.
That's right.
So it gets worse.
But the thing is, immigration doesn't actually work because, firstly, actually the vast majority of people who come here don't come here to work. I think it's only about a quarter to a third. Most are actually dependents or students, so they don't add to that labour force total. And also, the figures show that people who come from other countries tend to contribute far less in terms of taxes, so it doesn't actually help to skew that figure in our favour. But nevertheless, the driving force behind the immigration we've seen since the 1970s is low birth rates. So perhaps Paul is right.
A government response to it could be more family-friendly policies. Now, I'm old enough to remember when David Cameron did a family test on all government policy. Is it promoting families or not? Yeah. When you were an MP, and I spoke to you then as a journalist, of course, you were behind the whole idea of tax cuts for married couples, pro-family policies, because if you feel the government is in favour of families, you may have more children. It makes it easier. And I mean, childcare is a whole different conversation, but the childcare ratio issue is not resolved yet.
No, and the French. I mean, the French have been pursuing very, very pro-family policies for 100 years, and they have the best birth rate in Europe. They reckon 5 to 10 million people, extra French people, have been born as a result of those policies. So now, France also has terrible immigration problems like we do. And I think at the end of the day, immigration is a political choice. You can choose not to allow immigrants into your country, and that's what Boris Johnson didn't do, as we've been saying.
Well, it's a choice since Brexit. Before Brexit, it wasn't a choice, and now these politicians have control over the borders. If they mess it up, if Boris Johnson allowed, I mean, millions through the door, it's called the Boris Johnson wave. And I'm going to tell you, by the way, if you look forward to the next general election, the ONS is forecasting net migration to fall to 250,000 a year by 2028. That allows the Labour Party to say at the next election that we have cut net migration by 3/4 since the Tory Party. That is a top-line claim which was made by this government going to the next election, and the Tory Party have got to find an answer to this. Saying sorry isn't enough.
Well, joining us now is migration expert Mike Jones. Mike, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What do you make of these figures that have been published across the press this morning?
Well, chickens are coming home to roost, aren't they? You know, roughly 62 million people are living in England and Wales as of June last year. You know, that's an increase of 707,000 on mid-2023. You know, these are big, big numbers. It's the second largest annual jump in 75 years. And we've had the largest two-year jump on record between 2022 and 2023. I think that equated to about 1.5 million people. And, you know, guess what? This is being driven overwhelmingly by immigration policy. Even though we gave the previous government a mandate to reduce numbers and become more selective, the Tories went 180 degrees in the opposite direction. We're now living with the consequences.
And Mike, they will be punished for that. I mean, the point about Brexit is that these choices are now made by elected politicians, not by forced on us or we can't affect it because of a European Union membership. So I think the Tory party is rightly copying this, frankly. As a party, they've failed. They said through 4 elections they would cut net migration. They didn't. And now look at it. I mean, they're handing Labour a huge advantage at the next election already because of policies brought in at the back end of the Tory government on families. They will cut numbers coming in.
Yeah, I mean, the Conservatives obviously are now being punished in the polls. I mean, Kemi Badenoch is sort of languishing on around, 16, 17%. And, the immigration crisis has radicalised the British public. And, this explains much of Reform UK's success. I think the Labour Party will ride on the coattails of James Cleverly's last-ditch reforms. James Cleverly stopped, dependents from joining postgraduate students, joining care workers. He raised the salary thresholds. And obviously, net migration has come back down below 500,000. But, the British public want it much lower than that. I think net zero should be the starting point. Many people, including Reform UK, are talking about net negative migration. So, even though the numbers will come down under Labour's watch, that's no guarantee they will do well at the next election.
How do you think the government should achieve that? Obviously, as you said, there have already been some reforms in terms of dependent visas, graduate visas. Do you think the salary threshold for work visas needs to go up much more? Do you think we should dramatically cut down on the number of students coming here, even though that would impact universities? What do you think are the key things that the government could do?
Basically, you need a net migration target. Right, so whether that's 100,000 net zero, net negative, or whatever, so you have a target, and then you put caps on visas. You know, that could be the family visa, work visas, student visas. You need caps. I mean, the number of foreign students coming into the country should be cut in half at the bare minimum. You know, a lot of these students are, studying Mickey Mouse courses at substandard universities. They're basically here for economic migration purposes. You know, I think Labour has done a good job of banning the social care visa. I think that's a step in the right direction, but they need to go much further. In fact, the Labour Party are actually creating new sorts of job vacancies for their industrial strategy. So they haven't really got to grips with this, but you need caps. Bureaucratic rationing will be needed in the public sector, but you could, experiment with auctions of visas in the private sector. So there are different options there.
Imagine Labour auctioning off visas, my goodness. If you take away, look at the net migration figures, it looks like there was a 16,000 increase if net migration was zero, so just those being born here and more people. So without net migration at zero, you'd be down at tens, 20,000 increases every year in the population, which sounds much more manageable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the water industry here. We're having shortages of water. Our energy policy is completely messed up. We don't have nuclear capacity. We're not fully reliant on fossil fuels. We put all our eggs into the renewables basket. The costs of energy are going up, water shortages, our transport infrastructure is overcrowded. You have diseconomies of congestion there, pressure on housing, big pressure on housing, the NHS, schools, and obviously there's the intergenerational impact. What impact does mass immigration have in terms of national unity and political stability as well? And, there could be forms of social unrest in the future. I mean, we're beginning to see that already in, places like Epping and elsewhere.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I know this is a topic we'll keep coming back to. Mike Jones there. Well, still to come on Britain's Newsroom. If you're off on your summer holidays, we'll have the latest travel advice after that airport chaos. And on that note, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Quite a messy picture across Europe at the moment. Some places will have decent dry weather, but there is also some heavy thundery rain around. Temperatures across parts of Greece and Turkey not as high as they were to start the week, but nonetheless still pretty hot. And with that hot air, we are seeing some hefty showers. Could be some thunder also across parts of northern Italy and some fairly frequent showers across central parts of Spain. A few showery bursts across the Canary Islands as well. Otherwise, a lot of dry weather and more dry weather to come into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Dan was one of the victims of the attack, and he was just, within touching distance from the leading suicide bomber. And when that bomb went off, it killed 6 people.
It's still really surreal. It's still a kind of strange thought to realise that I was right in the middle of what happened that day. And even though it's 20 years, it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
The pain and the emotional torment that goes with that is just as fresh now as when it just happened.
Mm. And when you think back to that morning, because you've written a book about that day and your experience since, you actually were considering not going into work that day.
Yeah, my whole story of 7/7 is what I kind of term as sliding door moments. There's so many opportunities that were presented to me to do something different, or to stick to my normal routine and not step outside of that. And yeah, there's countless times where if I would have made a different decision, then I wouldn't have been on that train at that time. If I'd have got up on time, if I hadn't missed my stop, there's so many things that I can think back on and think, if only I've done this, if only I've done that. But it serves no purpose now because what's happened has happened.
You were horrendously injured, but people died on that bus that day.
Yeah, I mean, from the area of the train that I was on when the bomb went off, I'm the only one that survived. He killed everybody around me. And that's incredibly tough to live with, to know that you survived something that everybody around you didn't. And I was pretty much laying in and amongst dead bodies and body parts for about an hour and 40 minutes before I was taken out the tunnel.
And what do you remember about the murderer?
I think the most terrifying thing about it is just how calm he was. There was no fear, there was no hesitation, and the most scariest thing of all was he just looked like everybody else.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, summer travel chaos as holidaymakers face a day of delays after flights were grounded across the UK yesterday afternoon.
Yes, radar issues which caused a nationwide shutdown of airspace was a failure at NATS, the main air traffic control provider, which previously affected London's Heathrow and Gatwick airports.
But this isn't the first incident involving the air traffic control provider.
Yes, in August 2023, there was a flight plan software meltdown during the bank holiday, which impacted 750,000 passengers. And in 2014, there was a software error, a single faulty line of code at London Area Control Centre that caused a 1-hour airspace restriction.
In June 2000, a routine database update triggered a bug in the national airspace system at London Area Control, leading to a complete system failure. But Miriam, you avoided any issues with transport, didn't you? Because you used an alternative way to get on holiday.
We did. Well, we went on holiday to France, which was absolutely lovely. And when we booked it a couple of months ago, I was about to book the flight and I thought, you know, there's just been so much chaos in recent years. And then I think the French air traffic controllers threatened to go on strike.
Yeah.
Just thought, it's your one family holiday, you've got kids. The last thing you want is for your flight to be cancelled or there to be disruption and you're stuck with kids in an airport. So we went on the ferry and drove all the way down through France. And actually, it's a lot of driving, but it was cheaper.
Yeah.
It was good fun.
Toll roads, though?
Yeah, yes, but they're not too... some of them are kind of €6 or €7, and my goodness, they're so much better roads. Yeah. So, my kid's a bit older. It's not so fun if you've got toddlers, is it? But yeah, so I was put off by the potential for chaos, and I think a lot of people are going to.
And you're right. And what was behind this? We know that Heidi Alexander, who's the Transport Secretary, she's meeting with the head of the National Air Traffic Services, now called NATS, Martin Rolfe, today. That, I think, will be a meeting without coffee in Whitehall terms.
Yeah,
it won't be a nice meeting.
No.
And they may say standing up during it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because people are people are now taking evasive action like you are to avoid flying.
And probably they will not get compensation for this delay because it's airlines that pay compensation. And this is not the airline's fault. There's nothing they could do to avoid it. But I think 7,000 flights are controlled by NATS every day. We do have incredibly congested airspace. When things do go wrong, they will have a massive impact in this country, and that's almost not the fault of NATS. It's just how congested our skies are.
I think they're looking at redrawing the routes that aircraft can take, because there are certain lanes they can fly down. That's why you see an aircraft flying over the same route over where you are outside in the countryside. So if you allow more lanes to be opened up, it might be easier. We've got flying taxis, flying drones. It's not just planes we're talking about in the future. So Yeah, Nats have got a lot to think about, but I think their resilience is well, to me, just going on the reaction, what's happening, it looks like a problem.
It does, but it's a very unusual setup. It's a part privately owned, part government-owned company. And because of that, the Civil Aviation Authority set the budget for Nats. Nats think the budget is too low, and that's why they haven't invested in the kind of modern technology that some of our European counterparts have. So in some ways, of course, there may well be technical failures, there may well be management failures, but they're not a fully private company. Their hands are tied in terms of their budget. And so, in a way, it's up to the government or the Civil Aviation Authority to decide whether or not they can invest.
Literally, none of that matters to people.
No, I agree. But in terms of solving the problem...
No, but of course you're right. So, but look at the articles in the Telegraph today, for example, saying a cousin on the way to a wedding in Limerick, they're trying to get a hire car, you know, trying to get... Will they get there? They don't know. You've got someone going to a trip of a lifetime to New York, London, Dubai, Thailand for a 50th birthday. That could be cancelled. I mean, all sorts of problems out there. And this is when people think about the government, is when it goes wrong. Yeah. So, who cares really about... I mean, that detail is the plumbing of what's gone wrong.
That's right.
Essentially, the water's turned off in the house.
That's right. And especially for summer holidays, when it's your one holiday of the year, I mean, the impact on people's lives is huge.
Do get in touch and tell us, though, if you're stranded somewhere. Email us, and we'll, of course, read them out on air and send our you know, condolences.
Yes. Lots more coming up.
Here's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We do have some heavy, thundery showers around today, particularly across southern parts. Part of the reason that they're so thundery is because it's also quite warm and humid. But do take care across southern areas because these showers are going to turn quite intense. There's the risk of some thunder, also some frequent lightning and some hail. Pretty heavy rainfall could also lead to a bit of flash flooding, some travel disruption too. Elsewhere, there will be a scattering of showers pushing their way south and eastwards, but also some sunny spells. And in the sunshine, like I say, feeling pretty warm, quite humid towards the south as well. Temperatures here peaking in the mid-20s. Further north, a few degrees lower than this. As we go later on this evening, we are still going to see a couple of showers around, but generally they're going to be fizzling out and clearing away. But nonetheless, still some showery bursts. Orkney and Shetland seeing a spell of rain for a little while yet. And then across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland, some clearer skies to start the night, but also one or two showers perhaps. Further south and across eastern parts of England, particularly the southeast, this is where the showers are going to last for a little bit longer, but they are still going to eventually die out and clear away, with clearer skies then becoming more prominent as we go through the night. And under those clearer skies, temperatures, if anything, are going to be a little bit lower than some recent nights. And so it is going to be a touch fresher, perhaps a little bit more comfortable for sleeping for many of us, with temperatures generally in the low teens, a fair few places away from the towns and cities dropping into single digits. Then as we go through tomorrow, it is going to again be quite showery, particularly across the eastern parts of England. Some heavy showers, perhaps a bit of thunder, not quite as intense as the showers we're seeing across the south through today, but nonetheless could see some impacts. Elsewhere, a few showers here and there, but also some bright or sunny spells breaking out. And whilst temperatures won't be quite as high as today for many, it is still going to feel warm enough in any of those bright or sunny spells. Some dry weather to start the weekend. I'll see you again soon.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Travellers on the A9 Dornoch Bridge should be cautious due to high winds. The M4 eastbound near Hendy is closed for maintenance with diversions. In Stockton-on-Tees, a collision on the A19 northbound causes lane closures. In Surrey, M25 anti-clockwise congestion at junction 12 causes 10-minute delays. In Plymouth, a broken-down vehicle on the A38 eastbound entry slip leads to lane closures. And on the trains, cross-country services are disrupted between Edinburgh and Morpeth, while Hull trains operate a reduced service due to industrial action. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 31st of July. We're live across the United Kingdom. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Christopher Hope and Miriam Cates.
British airport chaos. Major travel hubs were paralysed yesterday after a tech outage left thousands of passengers stranded. Does air traffic control bosses have questions to answer?
Well, coincidentally, this comes as Sir Keir Starmer is ready to welcome in the biggest expansion of Britain's airports for half a century, as Heathrow prepares to unveil plans for a third runway. But what's the point if all these technical glitches carry on?
Yes, a third runway at Heathrow, potentially a second runway at Gatwick, but timing-wise, it is a little bit odd, isn't it?
Population boom. England and Wales see their populations soar by more than 700,000 people in a year as net migration fuels the second biggest population rise in 75 years. Is our country bursting at the seams?
And disorder at the border. 900 migrants crossed the Channel in dangerously overloaded boats yesterday, pushing the total number of people arriving this year past 25,400.
Migrant housing resistance. As you can see there, more than 1,000 anti-immigration protesters took to the streets of Waterlooville in Hampshire, opposing government plans to house asylum seekers in new apartments.
And are we seeing surveillance Britain? Well, the Met Police will double its use of live facial recognition cameras as the force loses 1,400 officers. So is this another step closer to Big Brother Britain? Yes, we're going to be covering these protests in Waterlooville. Of course, Epping protests last year in Essex. Do you think there's something in the water now, Chris? This is not going to go away. People are going to take to the streets.
No, and it's confusing, isn't it? So there are two things happening here. There's legal net migration, that's gone up. That's people just moving into our communities. There's also illegal migration, when people arriving here illegally are being housed in communities by the government, paid for by the taxpayer, and that's what the protesters there are demonstrating about. In a sense, I always think that illegal migration is a pimple on the rump of a big problem, frankly, of too many people arriving here legally to work and allowed to arrive here by the government.
Yeah, I suppose the number of illegal illegal migrants is much, much, much smaller. That is
true. It's a symptom, though, isn't it?
But also, I think it poses a much bigger security issue because these are people with no papers. These are people whose criminal history we don't know. They're predominantly young men, far from home, living in these hotels in communities. And I think in terms of security, that poses a much more imminent danger than too large legal migration figures. But it's difficult to know what the government should do because, of course, we should just stop the boats. We could do that. But there are already tens of thousands. No, they're not doing that. But there are tens of thousands of people in the system. If they're not in hotels, they're going to be living in the community. That's not safe either. Perhaps they should be in camps, but no MPs want these camps in their constituency, so it's a very difficult problem to solve.
I just don't think that the legal system is geared up to take on this challenge. I think the ECHR is out of date. It needs to be reformed. Article 8, the family life. The government, well, we're told by some MPs the government is looking at reforming that, and that's why this whole space is a huge issue for the next election. We'll hear from the Tory party in October whether they're going to campaign to leave the ECHR. Labour will try and tweak it, reform, of course, they want to leave it. Lib Dems, not so much. But this is definitely an issue. I think at the next election, we'll see both Reform and Conservatives standing on a platform to leave the ECHR. But that's 4 more years of small boats crossings before then. Not good. Now, send us your views and comments on this and other issues too. Are you stranded somewhere by the NATs, the air traffic control issues? Go to gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with that great man, Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. The top story this hour. Canada has joined the UK and France in pledging to recognise a Palestinian state if, they say, key conditions are met. Prime Minister Mark Carney says the Palestinian Authority must commit to reforms and hold elections, with Hamas excluded from power. He blamed Israel for allowing a catastrophe to unfold in Gaza, where 7 more people died from malnutrition just on Wednesday. The move has drawn condemnation from Israel and a warning from Donald Trump, who now says the US trade deal with Canada will be very hard. From Friday, Canada could face 35% tariffs unless a last-minute agreement is reached. Meanwhile, dozens of Palestinians have been killed while waiting for food aid in northern Gaza, according to authorities there. They say at least 30 people died, 300 more were also wounded by Israeli gunfire. The IDF says it fired warning shots near aid trucks, but is not aware of casualties and claims the numbers don't align with its own information. Hospital officials have said at least 48 bodies were taken to Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital, while separate reports suggest 6 more Palestinians were killed near a Rafah aid centre. That claim, though, denied by the charity operating there. It comes as the United Nations is warning famine is now unfolding in Gaza, with more than 1,000 Palestinians killed so far trying to access food since May. Here, almost 900 people crossed the Channel in small boats yesterday alone, according to GB News figures. It pushes this year's total to more than 25,400, with some dangerously overcrowded dinghies carrying up to 95 migrants a time. Meanwhile, protests continue in Epping, where 2 men are due in court after an asylum seeker allegedly tried to kiss a 14-year-old girl at the Bell Hotel. And in Waterlooville, fresh anger over plans to house 35 illegal migrants there in new flats in the town centre. Well, the local MP, Suella Braverman, has said the move would overwhelm public services and risk undoing years of regeneration work. Airlines are calling today for heads to roll after a technical glitch grounded over 150 flights in the UK during one of the busiest travel weeks of the year so far. Ryanair and EasyJet say the disruption is outrageous and extremely disappointing, with Ryanair demanding the resignation of the air traffic control boss, Martin Rolfe. The radar-related issue hit just after 4 p.m. and was resolved in under 20 minutes, but left thousands of passengers stranded. Departures have now resumed, but airlines want urgent reform and passengers are also being urged to check before heading to the airport. Also in the news this morning, talks between junior doctors and the government are set to resume after the latest 5-day strike ended in England. The BMA has accepted the Health Secretary's offer to restart discussions with those resident doctors, but he's warned the union has squandered the government's goodwill. Wes Streeting says he won't reopen negotiations on pay, but is willing to discuss working conditions, exam fees and rotas, calling the latest walkouts deeply disappointing. It's the 12th strike since last spring and the first under Labour following an earlier deal which gave resident doctors a 22% rise over 2 years. A hotel tycoon has launched a bold rival bid to expand Heathrow Airport. Surinder Arora's company has unveiled plans for a 2,800-metre third runway. That is shorter than Heathrow's original design and should avoid rerouting the M25 and keep costs down. Called the Heathrow West, the £25 billion plan includes a new terminal opening in phases and a fully operational runway by 2035. It means now, for the first time, 2 bids are on the table, with Heathrow also submitting its own proposal this week. That, though, is expected to cost billions more. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with your 60-second update in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the UK on GB News with me, Christopher Hope, and the brilliant Miriam Cates. We're in for Andrew and Bev. We are the supply teachers.
We are the supply teachers.
But we don't mind doing it. We love being.
Absolutely. And lots of you have been emailing in about immigration. That's obviously one of our big topics today and more to come. And we talked at the start of the programme about how we don't have enough young people of our own to fill vacancies in the jobs market. And Helen says, I'm sure we don't need 700,000 to 980,000 people a year to help with the labour force. And a lot of those people, as Miriam says, are not working anyway. Of course, that's absolutely true. There is a gap in terms of young people, but it is not nearly 1 million a year.
Well, there are millions not working.
Yes, that's also true.
And many of them are young people. That is a problem. And this government can't even cut the benefits bill by £5 billion. Yeah. Despite the majority. That was the biggest single depressing thing I think that happened in politics in the middle part of this year, was a failure to cut the benefits bill, because I'm afraid the Tories haven't got the political space to do it. No. Labour has, and they can't even do that, and that is a scratch. All they're doing is cutting the increase in the benefits bill, not even cutting the actual bill. This is money we're paying for our taxes so people don't work.
And some of the things that they could do are so simple. For example, no other country in Europe treats mental health the same as physical health. And the idea that you can sign on for full benefits by just phoning up and saying that you have depression or something, and that's believed, and you get the same amount of money as if you had a serious disability.
It's gone too far the wrong way,
crazy.
I think. I mean, it goes back to the Heads Together campaign, I think, from Prince Harry, Prince William, and then it became the big thing then, of course, COVID. And it's not to say there are people with mental health issues, no question, but it may have gone too far the wrong way.
And also the question is, yes, many people do have anxiety and depression, but the idea that staying at home and not working is the answer to that, I just don't think.
On your own at home, why is that better than being
exactly?
with
And for young people especially, there's been a 40% increase in the number of young men not in education and training just since COVID. 40%.
This can't
They've got their whole lives ahead of them.
And the answer is not migration.
No, absolutely. I think we're all agreed on that. Well, sticking on that topic of migration, more than 1,000 anti-immigration protesters demonstrated against plans to provide accommodation for asylum seekers in Waterlooville last night.
A Home Office consultation ends on Friday this week to decide whether or not to approve the proposed accommodation.
Well, Havant Borough Council say they'll do their utmost to represent and reflect the views of residents.
Reform Councillor in Portsmouth, Councillor George Madgwick, was there. George Madgwick, welcome to the show. What is the makeup of people who are demonstrating? Of course, the left will say it's far right, it's agitators. But was it who was there last night? The 1,000 people demonstrating against the accommodation.
I think it's always easy for the left of politics to label anybody that has a view of illegal migration in this country as far right. It's a real lazy term, but last night that was not reflective. I was actually surprised by the number of families, and as a family, I mean, you know, husband, wife, 3 kids. There was a lot of elderly people there. One of the local disabled forums come along and you had about 20 people in wheelchairs and stuff like that. It was a real mixed bag of people, and it was a real nice community feeling last night.
So, George, give us the details of what the council is proposing in terms of the number of migrants planning to be housed here. How did you find out about it? How was it publicised?
So we originally found out about it from local residents themselves because the proposal was just next to a school and it was highlighted by local parents about their concerns. And we discovered that the proposals were to take over 19 brand new, fully furnished, fully equipped apartments valued about £250,000 each. And those would house 35 migrants. That's where it all started off. It was smack bang in the middle of the busy town centre, just opposite a local play school as well. And that's what really triggered the concerns of local parents.
It's a big worry here. It's getting political, of course. Now, you're a Reform UK councillor, aren't you, Councillor Madgwick? But also Suella Braverman, the former Conservative Home Secretary, she's got involved, and that's it's got quite political with Labour councillors there. I think one of them is saying that she's exacerbating fear. None of this helps, of course, because you have got people concerned about migrants moving in. And do you think the consultation wasn't very clear? I mean, if you found out through parents at a school gate, is it, yet again, people aren't being told fully? You're a councillor, you're an elected representative of the area. Why weren't you told formally by the Home Office?
You know, there is processes in place. The Home Office would have notified Havant Borough Council and let them know of the proposals. Whether the councils then openly tell people about that is a whole different conversation or a whole different talking point. What I will say is it is becoming political, and these things often do. But it's nice to see Suella jump on board this as well. Usually MPs are quite quiet in these topics, especially locally in our local areas. Our two Labour MPs have never mentioned any of these problems. As you probably know, because I spoke on your show before, we had an alleged rape in a hotel, migrant hotel, recently, and both our local Labour MPs were silent. So it is nice that the MPs coming out and speaking about this. There is genuine concern, and why shouldn't there be? But as I say, the local Labour teams and Liberal Democrats have been awfully quiet, but it's nice that the Conservatives have now got on board and started speaking about this openly as well.
Now, George, it doesn't take a genius to work out that lots of unaccompanied young men who don't have papers, who are a long way from home, might not be safe in areas such as yours around women and children. But the question is, they are here on our soil. Yes, lots of people would hope that at some point they may be deported. But until that time, where do you think these people should be housed by the government?
I always speak very openly and honestly about this. Personally, I don't understand why it is controversial for anybody to say that they don't want undocumented and unchecked people on their streets walking amongst our communities. I don't get why that's controversial. That shouldn't be a left versus right thing at all. Personally, I mean, I would expect if I could have been committed as a crime to be detained, and that's what I think should happen. I think there should be some form of facility, whether there's one national one or regional ones, but I think there should be a facility where these people are taken safely to be processed and to be cared for, essentially, but in a facility until they are checked and rigorously checked, because letting these people out walking the streets where they are literally attacking women in the streets at 4 a.m. in the morning, it's what we had in Portsmouth, you know, when that's happening, it's completely unacceptable and completely unsafe. And we need to take a tough stance on this. Labour promised, you've got to remember, in their manifesto, they promised to stop the boats and to reduce illegal migration. And here we are, it's at a peak, and we had 900 just yesterday coming over. It's unacceptable.
We don't want to overstate it. I mean, they're not all attacking women at 4 a.m. in Portsmouth, but there are concerns. There are concerns, of course, about people feeling safe, certainly when undocumented migrants living in the area, and that's a problem. And we'll be seeing more of this, won't we, with this government plan to move people out of hotels, all of them emptied by 2029, we're told by Rachel Reeves, moving into HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, or flats. And this I think, is the beginning of a problem, not the end of it.
No, and firstly, you're right. Not everybody that's coming over is unsafe. Some of them will be genuine, some of them will be lovely people, absolutely. But the problem is we don't know. In relation to the HMO question, this is an even bigger issue. You know, they're trying to answer a problem with a problem. They're going to cause another issue. If you take hotels out and you put these people into social housing or into HMOs, which are meant for local residents and local families, it means the social housing market is going to be even further stretched. We've got a dramatically large large waiting list in this community with tens of thousands of people on it. Some people have been waiting 7, 8, 9 years for a place, and you're just going to put an even bigger burden on them. So resolving a hotel problem with a bigger problem is going to cause an even bigger stretch, which will then push up rental prices.
That is the problem, isn't it, Miriam? Councillor Madrick, thank you for joining us today on the show. That is the problem. You've got people waiting to get their kids into council accommodation, but they can't get them in because they see migrants getting a leg up.
And we just have such an inconsistent approach to safeguarding. So if you want to work in a school, if you want to read to a kid in a classroom, you have to go through a DBS check. If you want to take a child to the park when you're at school, you have to fill in a risk assessment. But we don't think anything of allowing young men with no documents and no criminal record history to live in the community. It's astounding.
It is balmy.
Anyway, on a more uplifting note, it's our final week to see how you could become £54,321 richer in our biggest cash giveaway to date. The lines close on Friday, the 1st of August. I think that's tomorrow. So make sure you don't miss out, and here are all the details that you need.
Lines close tomorrow on your chance to win big. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still ahead in lighter news, the tale of a rotund rodent. There he is. Angel Delight is an obese hamster the size of a jacket potato, and she's looking for a new home after her previous owner gave her the wrong food and she had no space to exercise. Poor Angel.
Maybe she just needs some Ozempic.
You're with Britain's Newsroom. We're with you on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Despite what Donald Trump's saying about ceasefires and whatever, reports have been coming out overnight about continuing missile attacks.
Well, British expat David Mason was caught up in those missile attacks on Friday when he and his son barely escaped with their lives after an Iranian missile exploded next to them in a bombing raid in northern Israel.
Let's speak to David because David joins us now from his hospital bed, actually, to tell us about this terrifying ordeal. David, how are you?
I'm alive. I'm alive. That's one thing. Yeah. I'm alive.
How bad was it? A close call, was it?
It was very close. The missile hit about 25 feet away from us. God. It blew me completely, that's basically off my feet. And it was just dark and just blood everywhere, basically. I landed. As I woke up, there was a body. I was on top of a body which I thought was my son. And as I cleared all the debris away, I looked up and realized my son was standing there with a hole basically in his neck, shot. Oh. And, I basically went into father mode, as my other children said, dad mode, took my shirt off, wrapped it round his neck to make sure that he wasn't bleeding more. And then he turned to me and said, "But Dad, you're splurting blood from everywhere. My arms, my back, my head." And I said, "Don't worry about me."
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 23 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Chris and Miriam, and we're now joined by broadcaster and journalist Carol Malone and political commentator Jonathan Liss here in the studio. And we're going to start off looking at this story about the population boom. Second highest population increase on record last year, I think over 700,000.
This is the last figures they can blame the Tories on. The next lot are all Labour's fault.
Well, I mean, you say the word blame. I'm not sure I would describe a kind of a value judgment to it. The population has risen every single year in Britain. It's generally a good thing, unless you have a capacity issue, which obviously we do live on an island. There might come a time at which there is a capacity issue. I don't think that we've reached that point yet.
We have reached that point.
Well, OK, well, as I say, there are disagreements on that point.
This is the second highest ever. OK, the highest was last year with 821,000. This is the second highest ever, 700,000. It's entirely unsustainable for our housing, for our healthcare, for our social cohesion, for the social fabric of this country. It's totally unsustainable. How can we have this many people in? Well, you know, Angela Rayner tells us we've got a housing crisis and she's going to build 1.5 million houses in the next however many years. And yet, this year, we've had more than 700,000 people.
OK, but when you have those population increases, you also have more people paying tax into the system, more people able to staff those services, more people to build the houses, more people to work in the NHS, more care workers. We don't have the care workers.
You don't if there are illegal immigrants who are not working, so you
But one thing perhaps we can agree on is the fact that the number of people who've come into the country, so 1.5 million over 2 years, massively exceeds house building targets. So even if you disagree on NHS capacity, on taxation, we simply do not have enough housing and enough housing being built to house that many people doing.
I completely accept that we have a problem with housing. We have a housing crisis. And the government, it's not because of migration in principle, it's because, well, it goes back 40 years, actually,
Jonathan,
when the government sold off the council
You can't be saying that. It is because of that, because even with the government selling off, the numbers we have coming in, 821,000 last year, 700,000 this year. As Miriam just said, it is totally unsustainable. You can't, no matter what kind of house building programme you had, you're not going to keep up with that. And the fact is the people who are coming in are taking houses away from the people here who need them. They're getting accommodation. They're being put up in the hotels. And the people here aren't getting what they need. It is entirely unsustainable. And you can't expand your population by nearly 2 million in 2 years and expect it's all going to work.
Well, I don't think that, look, we have a lot of problems in this country. I just don't accept that migration is the root cause.
You never do, though. That's the problem.
And you always do. I mean, fine, we disagree. We're allowed to disagree.
Well, it's not that we disagree, it's just factually...
Well, I don't know. You're saying that unsustainability is a fact. I'm saying that's an opinion. I disagree with it. Well, I think that if we can absorb people, those people are working in sectors that we need to have workforce.
The good thing about this is that no one can blame the EU anymore. It's blamed on elected politicians.
Exactly.
And those who get it will copy it.
But that's also, isn't that interesting? Because before the referendum, we heard so much that, it's because of the free movement of people, that's what's unsustainable. No,
it's
and
choices.
It wasn't the free movement of people.
Choices made
the government accepted those people into this country because we needed them. The government had every right and power to stop them coming in and chose not to.
EU migrants over whom we did have no control have been replaced with non-EU migrants over whom we do have control.
That was the government's choice. That was your government's choice as well, Miriam, when you were in power. Because obviously the government felt it needed those people.
I
didn't accept them for a joke, did it? No, it didn't accept. Suella Braverman, the most anti-migrant Home Secretary we've ever had, didn't suddenly decide to let in hundreds of thousands of people for a joke. She clearly agreed that we needed them.
Would you accept that the interests of the British people come first in this country? Would you accept that?
Of course.
Well, that's not what's happening now, because with the amount of migration and immigration, both legal and illegal. That's not happening in this country, and we see it every day. Our homeless don't get housed. They're living on the streets. And the people who come here illegally are being put in hotels and being given accommodation immediately. It is not fair on the people who...
But Carol, look, illegal and legal are two very, very separate categories of migration rights. So, yeah, right, but illegal or irregular migration accounts for a tiny proportion.
Stop calling it irregular.
Well, it is irregular.
It's irregular.
It's
illegal.
No human being is illegal, Carol.
It's illegal to enter the country, by the way, in a small boat. That is illegal.
Labour have chosen to call it irregular because it makes it sound better.
Well, actually, they're the ones who call it illegal, actually.
Jonathan Carroll, the forecast from the ONS is that we get down to 340,000 by 2028.
Yeah.
That will allow Labour to say they have more than halved it under the Labour government. That is a political win for them, the election. But is that still too high for you, 340,000 arriving by 2028?
I remember what was David Cameron's figure?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. And I think, I think immigration is a great thing if it's controlled. But I think it's also a great thing if you can choose who you have in the country, if you can choose the skills, the people you have. No, we can't. We're not choosing the people coming over.
I'm talking about legal migration, regular migration, which is the absolute lion's share of the migration that comes in. We have total power over that.
Can we move on to a different story?
Yes.
This story in the Telegraph on page 10, number 10 behind Savile smear against Farage. Now, I'm an old cynical hack, but I saw this yesterday, well, the day before yesterday, when it came out, and I thought Peter Carl knows what he's doing there. He's using the word Jimmy Savile. He knew he'd get a reaction from Nigel Farage, and they both have a row about a word, which is Jimmy Savile, deeply offensive to so many people. Do you think it's right or wrong that, as the Telegraph say, that number 10 almost allowed this smear to take place yesterday, Jonathan?
Well, if it's number 10 that did it, I think it was a very foolish approach. I understand why they probably did it. They wanted to have a confected row, the so-called dead cat that political journalists are so beloved of discussing. So people would be talking about the Jimmy Savile row instead of the rights and wrongs of the Online Safety Act, which I happen to think is bad legislation in general. I don't think it's a left-right issue. I think it's bad legislation for a number of reasons.
The bottom line here, this was an unevidenced slur against Nigel Farage, and I really hope he does sue them over it. But, Starmer, yet again, and his people have kicked them... What's the word? Kicked themselves in the guts with this, because we know that Starmer, when he was head of the DPP... Sorry, when he was DPP, head of the Crown Prosecution Service, we know that they failed, when he was in charge, to prosecute Jimmy Savile. And a couple of years ago, you'll remember this, Chopper. You remember when Boris Johnson brought up the subject of Jimmy Savile and pointed out that he had not been dealt with while Starmer was in charge. At the time...
And it was outrageous then as well.
Can I just finish my point? So at the time, Starmer said, this is akin to fascism to try and blame me for this. So it's OK for him to complain about it. And what he's done now, and what will happen now, is the reform will start digging deep now into his time as DPP. And they will look at what he did.
Well, there's already been looked at. There was already a review in 2012 conducted by Alison Levitt, which completely exonerated Keir Starmer of any wrongdoing while he was DPP in response to this. And that is why there was such outrage on the left and right. Munira Mirza, one of Boris Johnson's most loyal lieutenants, resigned over that issue in particular.
Do you think it's conceivable that Keir Starmer did not know what was happening with Jimmy Savile? I find it...
Well, you might find it strange, but you didn't conduct the report.
Prosecutions, but you didn't see this case.
On this story, though, the point is that they have kicked themselves in the foot. Yes. There was a legitimate point to make about Nigel Farage saying he'd repeal the Online Safety Act without any ideas of what to replace it with to protect children. I think that would have been a legitimate political attack. Yes. But to mention Savile has meant they've shot themselves in the foot. Now they look ridiculous, and the topic's moved on.
But doesn't it also show the level to which Nigel Farage lives in Keir Starmer's head? He is terrified.
Of course he is. Can I say one fact about the row? The Tories are nowhere in the row.
The Tories are nowhere.
Well, they are watching.
That's the point. But the bottom line in all this, the Tories are nowhere.
Anyway, we are going to have to leave it there.
We are, aren't we? Here is your 60-second news update with the wonderful, the brilliant Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. The top stories this hour. Canada has joined the UK and France in pledging to recognise a Palestinian state if they say key conditions are met. But Prime Minister Mark Carney insists Hamas must be excluded from power. Meanwhile, dozens of Palestinians have been killed while waiting for food aid in northern Gaza, with authorities there blaming Israeli gunfire. Hospital officials report at least 48 are dead as the United Nations warns famine is now unfolding. 5 Conservative MPs are demanding an urgent meeting with the Home Secretary as concerns mount over the growing use of hotels for asylum seekers. Suella Braverman warns it could overwhelm public services after nearly 900 migrants crossed the Channel just yesterday. Ryanair and EasyJet are demanding air traffic control reform after what the airlines describe as outrageous disruption. Over 150 UK flights were grounded after a radar glitch. It's the second major failure in less than a year. Junior doctors will return to talks with the government after a 5-day strike. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says no more pay talks, but working discussions will be discussed. And firms paying invoices late could face multi-million-pound fines under new government plans. Sir Keir Starmer says it's time to pay up with new powers for the Small Business Commissioner to enforce stricter payment deadlines. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more news at 11.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Up next, Scotland Yard will double its use of live facial recognition cameras to try and keep you safe. Is this another step closer to Big Brother Britain? This is Big Brother GB News. Britain's Newsroom.
I hope not.
Stay tuned.
Well, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We do have some heavy thundery showers around today, particularly across southern parts. Part of the reason that they're so thundery is because it's also quite warm and humid. But do take care across southern areas because these showers are going to turn quite intense. There's the risk of some thunder, also some frequent lightning and some hail. Pretty heavy rainfall could also lead to a bit of flash flooding, some travel disruption too. Elsewhere, there will be a scattering of showers pushing their way south and eastwards, but also some sunny spells. And in the sunshine, like I say, feeling pretty warm, quite humid towards the south as well. Temperatures here peaking in the mid-20s, further north a few degrees lower than this. As we go later on this evening, we are still going to see a couple of showers around, but generally they're going to be fizzling out and clearing away. But nonetheless, still some showery bursts. Orkney and Shetland seeing a spell of rain for a little while yet. And then across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland, some clearer skies to start the night, but also 1 or 2 showers perhaps. Further south and across eastern parts of England, particularly the southeast, this is where the showers are going to last for a little bit longer, but they are still going to eventually die out and clear away, with clearer skies then becoming more prominent as we go through the night. And under those clearer skies, temperatures, if anything, are going to be a little bit lower than some recent nights. And so it is going to be a touch fresher, perhaps a little bit more comfortable for sleeping for many of us, with temperatures generally in the low teens, a fair few places away from the towns and cities dropping into single digits. Then as we go through tomorrow, it is going to again be quite showery, particularly across the eastern parts of England. Some heavy showers, perhaps a bit of thunder, not quite as intense as the showers we're seeing across the south through today, but nonetheless could see some impacts. Elsewhere, a few showers here and there, but also some bright or sunny spells breaking out. And whilst temperatures won't be quite as high as today for many, it is still going to feel warm enough in any of those bright or sunny spells. Some dry weather to start the weekend. I'll see you again soon.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road users are advised to use caution crossing the A9 Dornoch Bridge due to high winds affecting driving conditions. In Surrey, the M3 eastbound exit slip at Junction 2 has a road traffic collision with all lanes closed. Normal traffic conditions are expected later today. In Plymouth, the A38 eastbound entry slip from the A386 has a broken down vehicle causing lane closures, expected to clear soon. And on the trains, cross-country services are disrupted between Edinburgh and Morpeth, and Grand Central services between Stevenage and London are experiencing issues. Check online for updates. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let's cross now live to Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, where Lord Tebit's coffin has arrived for his funeral.
Yeah.
We can see it there. Lord Tebit, of course, one of the major voices of Thatcherism in the 1980s. Of course, he was, I think he was a party chairman latterly, but also he was the Trade and Industry Secretary. He was someone who articulated Thatcherism in a way which I think Margaret Thatcher even sometimes struggled to articulate. And of course, he was obviously a victim of the IRA bombing in 1984.
Particularly his wife
Margaret,
very severely injured.
was confined to a wheelchair, and he became her carer for the following decades. Famous, he said how he turned her in her sleep every night, a carer, and that was. I met him for lunch once. He was the most charming man you could ever meet. So kind, friendly. It was really after the time when he was seen as this kind of bother boy on Spitting Image. He became much more mellow in his dotage, but he was fiery on his politics, and he believed in this country. He believed in Brexit. He believed in, as he said, getting on your bike and finding a job. And what you'd make of the millions who are on benefits today, well, we don't know now, but we can guess.
And of course, he was from a very ordinary background, which is not what people tend to associate with the Conservative Party, or certainly not in that era. He was from a very working-class family. His father actually lost his job during the Depression, and so, of course, Norman Tebit did absolutely understand what it meant to be without work. And he was an RAF pilot, wasn't he, in his national service, I think?
We're joined here with Danny Shaw, who used to work at the BBC for decades. Danny, you ever meet Norman Tebit?
I never met Lord Tebit, but I do remember that speech about getting on your bike, which is what his father apparently did when he lost his job. And he said he got on his bike and looked for work. And it captured something around that time, whether you agreed with it or not, or agreed with what the Conservatives were doing, but it captures a sentiment at that time, which has just sort of lasted, I think, for years and years and years. And it shows the power of, the power of a phrase that can, really sort of just sum up a mood and a sense and a purpose behind, political parties.
It's the idea of self-reliance that he was pushing, I think, which people said, it's up to you to get on with your life, find your way forward. Just looking here, he, of course, quit politics in 1987, didn't he? 3 years after the Brighton bombing, to look after his wife, Margaret, and yet he still resonates decades later.
Yeah, and one of the main reforms that he brought in as Employment Secretary was to do with the trade unions and making sure that ballots were secret. And, of course, one of the massive problems that Thatcher was elected to sort out in the late 70s, early 80s was this issue of mass strikes that had really plagued our economy for over a decade. And those kind of reforms that he brought in made a big difference between the 1980s and now, although, of course, we're starting to see changes to union power again.
Yeah, we can't quite see who's there. We're looking closely at these footage, and as soon as we get closer shots of who is entering the church there in Bury St Edmunds, we can bring you who's there.
Well, moving on now, and the Metropolitan Police is set to more than double its use of live facial recognition cameras to up to 10 deployments a week.
The move comes as it restructures to cover the loss of 1,400 officers and 300 staff amid budget shortages.
But is this a good idea, or are we becoming Surveillance Britain?
To debate this now, we're joined in the studio by the co-founder and chair of the Together Association, Alan Miller, and the crime and policing commentator and former BBC journalist, Danny Shaw.
Welcome, both of you. Let's start with you, Alan. What's your reaction to this increased use of facial recognition cameras?
Well, there are a number of concerns with this. Firstly, we don't have proper debate and discussion or oversight and regulation in it. We know that Clearview AI were fined $7.5 billion by the ICO for scraping 30 billion faces from Facebook. But even then, we know that the faces have a huge false positive rate. So in Wales, for instance, a landmark case where the Court of Appeal overturned the use of it and struck against it because 2,541 people were highlighted and only 234 were accurate. So we've got false positives, we've got increasing surveillance, we've got random, almost criminalising all of Britain. It's like being in a lineup with a walking digital ID. The idea that being British and in England that your private life and that you're free to go along without encumbrance, unless you're considered to be committing a crime, is being upended. We've seen the Met Police now, even with their own statistics, across the 30 boroughs, tens of thousands of people in every borough being randomly filmed, and yet the actual arrest rate is very minimal. And we also have concerns about two-tier policing and targeting of certain types of protesters, certain types of people. So loads of false positives, not enough scrutiny, increasing surveillance and suffocation of much of what the public like at asylum, hotels and others, where we've seen with the Online Safety Act things being suppressed. So around all of this, we've got grave concerns. It should be stopped. It shouldn't be being increased.
Danny, sure, there is something called the Biometrics and Surveillance Camera Commissioner. That's a watchdog to protect against what Alan's saying. Is that enough, or are there these false positives? Are innocent people being blamed for crimes?
I think the technology and the safeguards have improved hugely since that court case about 5 years ago. And the Met Police is using facial recognition more and more effectively. Over the past 2.5 years, they've made over 1,000 arrests from deployments of facial recognition cameras, including arrests for sexual offences, for people who are wanted, who'd gone missing, for sexual offences and other violent crimes. It's 3 times more effective using a facial recognition camera to find someone than it is from using a police officer to find someone. The safeguards are there, and they have been independently verified by a study from the National Physical Laboratory, which was done 2 years ago, which found that the settings that are used by the Met Police and South Wales Police, which is the other force that uses it predominantly, there is no bias. There is a small false positive rate, but the number of false positives this year, the number of false alerts in 94 deployments by the Met was 7. And what a false positive means is that the system alerts the officer in the control room, and the officer then goes and checks with that individual, says, well, this is saying that you are Christopher Hope, who's wanted for this crime. You go up to this individual and say, are you Christopher Hope? Let me see your details, your driving licence, whatever, and says, oh, no, it's not. It's
Danny Shaw.
Danny Shaw. That's it, end of matter. It's not some gross intrusion. It doesn't suddenly mean, oh, you're in a police cell, you're banged up, etc. It is a way of checking identity of people who are wanted for serious crimes.
I mean, Alan, do you accept that this can be used in a good way if the safeguards are sufficient?
I'm a big fan of technology. Last year, 5 million faces were scanned. We've got a situation where we should be having policing without fear or favour, investigation and pursuit of criminals. But what seems to be the approach is a very technocratic wanting to survey, control and track. It's not just in facial technology as it happens. We know about it in the discussion about central bank digital currency, digital ID, the Online Safety Act. And the question is, why are we going along down the line? I know why we are, because people are concerned about the lack of policing, and that's true. They're concerned about burglaries not getting done. That's true. They're concerned about lots of serious crime not being addressed. That's true. We talk about sexual offences. We've just seen the whole rape gang situation and some of the police involved in that. We've seen terrible things. But we must not allow, like with free speech, we must not allow a state, even if you think all these guys currently are great, and benevolent and considerate, and many of us don't. We think there's a two-tier. But then Russia and China demonstrate what this is all about. And you see in New York, as well as Wales and other places, lots of examples of the fact that this is very problematic, this technology. But even if it was completely accurate, we should not be surveying, tracking, monitoring all of our citizens on the basis of seeing, let's just see how we can solve some crime. We must have privacy, and we must have a situation where we can pursue our lives in a free way.
Joanne's got a point there. We have 6 million CCTV cameras, 1 for every 11 people in the country, 3rd highest penetration rate after China and America. There are civil liberties issues here. Yes, it seems quite a small number they're lifting and arresting for facial recognition, but there's a wider issue about our own privacy, isn't there?
Well, you have privacy rights, and your rights are enshrined in the Human Rights Act, which is very dear to you, I'm sure. And, if you come out of the European Convention on Human Rights, then your privacy rights might be affected. Yes. So have a think about that. But there are safeguards around these measures. You talked about the Biometrics Commissioner. The Metropolitan Police and other forces have a very strict sort of set of practices that they adhere to around this. The data of the alerts is deleted within a month if it's not used for evidential purposes. And it's not about surveillance and tracking everyone. They're not interested in that. They're interested in tracking serious criminals, people who are wanted, and also looking for missing people. And really, this is an advance of technology that the police should be utilising with safeguards. And actually, they've been held back over the past decade because of a very effective lobbying campaign by privacy campaigners.
I'm so sorry, Al and Danny, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm sure we'll have you back because it's a very, very important topic. But coming up next, family and friends are gathering at the funeral of Tory former Cabinet Minister Lord Norman Tebit at the cathedral in the town where he lived. He was, of course, one of Margaret Thatcher's closest political allies who died on July the 7th, aged 94. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Quite a messy picture across Europe at the moment. Some places will have decent dry weather, but there is also some heavy thundery rain around. Temperatures across parts of Greece and Turkey not as high as they were to start the week, but nonetheless still pretty hot. And with that hot air, we are seeing some hefty showers. Could be some thunder also across parts of northern Italy and some fairly frequent showers across central parts of Spain. A few showery bursts across the Canary Islands as well. Otherwise, a lot of dry weather and more dry weather to come into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's 10:51. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Christopher Hope, and the great Miriam Cates. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is preparing to back the biggest expansion of Britain's airports in 50 years, with Heathrow's third runway at the heart of his ambitions.
Well, the Prime Minister is said to be ready to do whatever it takes to get construction underway by 2030, just 5 years away, but not just at Heathrow, but at other major sites too.
We're joined now by our colleague at GB News, Adam Cherry. Adam, this is not great timing when we are looking at the papers and we know about GB News viewers and listeners stranded around the world because of the failures of the air traffic control service in this country.
Yeah, as a PR exercise, it's not great timing, you're right. But let's just dig into the detail of what's being announced or proposed today. So as you said, a third runway proposed for Heathrow. The government gave backing for this. The Chancellor gave her backing earlier this year, and today is the deadline for the proposal. So Heathrow, the owners of that airport themselves, are saying that it will boost capacity from 84 million passengers to 150 million passengers per year. It's all part of the government's growth mission. As I say, the deadline is today. There are some competing proposals, one by the Aurora Group, which is proposing a shorter runway, which therefore would not interfere with the M25, because the main proposal by Heathrow themselves does divert the M25. It will require a tunnel, which is obviously very expensive. It could be up to £60 billion. The government's also planning to limit legal challenges to this, because this has been an ongoing campaign to get this runway built, but local councils, even the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, they've opposed this at every step. So they're going to introduce legislation that will limit the impact of judicial reviews on expansions like this. And as I say, it's all about economic growth. Now, we all know, Chris, Miriam, you of course know that these projects take a very long time. As I say, delay. They say they want to get spades into the ground by 2030. But again, as I say, with all promises like this, you often see delays.
Madam, I'm old enough to remember when the Airport Commission in 2015 recommended the third runway at Heathrow, and the Supreme Court then lifted a ban in 2020. It goes on forever. I mean, it's like a Groundhog Day trying to get this thing built.
Well, Adam Cherry...
Sorry,
2 seconds.
Well, exactly. These things get delayed all the time.
Yeah, you know the score, Adam. Unfortunately, we're approaching the end of the hour, which means we have to stop there. But thank you so much. I'm sure there'll be lots of debate over that runway, which may take 2030. Who knows? We'll probably both be retired by the time it's
given
built.
the ballooning population it's required, obviously. Now, still ahead, the friends and family are gathering for the funeral of the former Conservative Cabinet Minister, Lord Tebit, Norman Tebit, at the cathedral in the town where he lived. This is GB News. More news on that shortly. This is Britain's Newsroom.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Quite warm and humid across the south today, and there is a Met Office yellow thunderstorm warning in place. Not everywhere in the warning area will catch a downpour, but where they do occur, they could cause some problems with a lot of rain falling in a short space of time. This weather front is the main focus for those thundery showers. We've already seen 1 or 2, and continued risk through the afternoon across the southernmost counties of England in particular. As I said, hit and miss, but where they do occur, a lot of rain could fall in a short space of time, potentially giving some local flooding. Further north, well, a few scattered light showers, many places dry, cloudy, and a little fresher than yesterday, and still quite warm and humid across the south. Now, as I said, these downpours will continue into the evening. Parts of East Anglia down towards Dorset. That's the main area at risk, but not everywhere in that zone will catch the downpours. But as I said, where they do occur, they could cause some local flooding, certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. A few lighter showers across northern England, the odd one coming into Northern Ireland and westernmost parts of Scotland. It's staying pretty grey across the far northeast with thicker cloud and rain and drizzle at times, just edging back up towards the Northern Isles. Now, as we go through the evening time, the thundery showers across the south should tend to fade away. That warning is in place until 9 o'clock this evening. Then we'll see thicker cloud returning to some parts of northeast England, the odd little bit of showery rain here and there, and a few showers continuing to feed into northern Scotland. But many places becoming dry overnight, temperatures dipping down into the low teens for most of us. On to Friday's weather and generally a drier day across the south. Still not completely dry, quite cloudy in eastern England. Some light rain and drizzle at times on the coast. And inland we'll see some showers breaking out from northern England down across the Midlands towards the southeast. Not as heavy as today's. And many western areas will stay dry and bright with some sunny spells. Temperatures mostly high teens or low 20s.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 31st of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Christopher Hope and Miriam Cates.
Well, we've been discussing British airport chaos today. Major travel hubs were paralysed yesterday after a tech outage left thousands of passengers stranded. A perfect start to the summer holidays.
And that comes with perfect timing, as Sir Keir Starmer is ready to welcome in the biggest expansion of our airports in this country for half a century, as Heathrow prepares to unveil plans for a third runway.
And mourners are gathered for the funeral of former Tory Cabinet Minister Lord Norman Tebit in Bury St Edmunds, the formidable political force who died in July, aged 94.
Population boom. England and Wales see their population soar by more than 700,000 people in a year, as net migration fuels the second biggest population rise in 75 years. Is this country bursting at the seams?
Well, there's more disorder at the border. 900 migrants crossed the Channel in dangerously overloaded boats yesterday, pushing the total number of people arriving in this way this year past 25,400.
Migrant housing resistance. More than 1,000 anti-immigration protesters took to the streets of Waterlooville in Hampshire to oppose government plans to house asylum seekers in new apartments.
And are we living in surveillance Britain? Well, the Met Police will double its use of live facial recognition cameras as the force loses 1,400 officers. So is this another step closer to Big Brother Britain?
So, is Big Brother Britain a bad thing? I mean, I know it sounds bad, and we think back to George Orwell's book 1984 and the presence of that eye watching us. But if it keeps us safe and it's being used in the right way, is it a problem?
But this is what authoritarian regimes throughout history have said, isn't it? This is to keep you safe. It's what the communists said, it's what the Nazis said, and I think there are really good uses for this, absolutely. But what worries me is the fact that, as Alan was saying, our previous guest, how can you go about your private business anymore? And I don't actually think this is just about the state. Look at doorbell cameras. I remember when I was out knocking on doors, as all politicians do, and I knocked on somebody's door, they weren't in, I think I may have delivered a leaflet. Anyway, I knocked on their door, happened to knock on their door again about a month later. And the chap says, oh yes, you came a month ago, didn't you? We were watching you from South Africa. And they'd been on holiday in South Africa. I'd obviously rung the doorbell. They'd started watching their remote camera. Now, obviously, all I was there to do was deliver a leaflet, and you kind of say, well, if you're not there to do any harm. But it is a bit creepy.
And yet, when there was a murder, often you hear the police ask for doorbell camera footage. So, and it does help the people in South Africa to know who's at the door. Is it someone they want to be there or not?
But can you imagine a society where you are always being watched? I don't think that's psychologically healthy.
That ship has sailed. I mean, we have got...
Even your phone is watching you. We're surrounded by cameras, Chris, so we can't really talk.
I love the camera on telly, but I mean, we're surveilled, aren't we, by 11 million cameras, I think, CCTV cameras.
And everybody knows where their kids are all the time because of the apps on the phones.
And AI will be able to use this footage. I mean, they're going to use facial recognition, I think, at the Notting Hill Carnival to try and stop any stabbings there, I guess, and any violence, and that's a good thing. So I always thought, when I was covered it for the Telegraph, the whole idea of civil rights and civil liberties, I got that. But I think increasingly people just think if it keeps me safe, I'll lose a bit of my privacy for that.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not convinced. I think the psychological impact of always being watched will actually reduce people's trustworthiness rather than increase. Anyway, it's definitely coming down the line. Well, we'd love to know what you think about that issue and all the other topics we've been discussing today. Send your views to gbnews.com/your say. But first, the news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. The top story just after 11 o'clock. Canada has now joined the UK and France in pledging to recognise a Palestinian state if, they say, conditions are met. The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, says the Palestinian Authority must commit to reforms and hold elections with Hamas excluded from power. He blamed Israel for allowing a catastrophe to unfold in Gaza, where 7 more people died from malnutrition just on Wednesday alone. The move has drawn condemnation, though, from Israel and a warning from Donald Trump, who now says a US trade deal with Canada will be very hard. From Friday, Canada could face 35% tariffs unless a last-minute agreement is reached. Almost 900 people crossed the English Channel in small boats yesterday, according to GB News figures. It pushes this year's total to more than 25,400, with some dangerously overcrowded dinghies carrying up to 95 migrants at a time. Meanwhile, protests are continuing in Epping, where 2 men are due in court after an asylum seeker allegedly tried to kiss a 14-year-old girl at the Bell Hotel. In Waterlooville, fresh anger over plans to house 35 illegal migrants is also taking place after new flats are set to house them in the town centre. The local MP there, Suella Braverman, says the move would overwhelm public services and risk undoing years of regeneration work. Ofcom is cracking down on porn sites failing to protect children online. 4 companies running 34 adult sites are under formal investigation over their age check systems. The sites attract more than 9 million UK users each month, but Ofcom says it's not clear if they're keeping under 18s out. The regulator says the group of firms were prioritised due to high user numbers and potential risk of harm. Airlines are calling for heads to roll after a technical glitch grounded over 150 flights during one of the UK's busiest travel weeks of the year. Ryanair and EasyJet say the disruption is outrageous and extremely disappointing, with Ryanair now demanding the resignation of the air traffic control boss. The radar-related issue hit just after 4 p.m, but was resolved in under 20 minutes, though it left thousands of passengers stranded. Departures have now resumed, but airlines want urgent reform and passengers are still being urged to check before heading to the airport. A man and a woman have died after falling from the cliffs below Whitby Abbey in North Yorkshire. Emergency crews were called just after 7 p.m. last night after the pair were seen on the rocks as the tide came in. A Coast Guard helicopter helped recover them an hour later, but paramedics confirmed they both died at the scene. Talks between resident doctors and the government are set to resume after the latest 5-day strike ended in England. The British Medical Association has accepted the Health Secretary's offer to restart those discussions, but he's warned the union has squandered the government's goodwill. Wes Streeting says he won't reopen negotiations on pay, but is willing to discuss working conditions, exam fees and rotas, calling the latest walkouts deeply disappointing. It is the 12th strike since last spring and the first under Labour following an earlier deal which did give doctors a 22% rise over 2 years. A hotel tycoon has launched a bold rival bid to expand Heathrow Airport. Surinder Arora's company has unveiled plans for a 2,800-metre third runway. That is shorter than Heathrow's original design and would avoid rerouting the M25 and supposedly keep costs down. Called Heathrow West, the £25 billion plan includes a new terminal opening in phases and a fully operational runway by 2035. It means that for the first time, 2 bids are now on the table, with Heathrow submitting its own proposal this week, though that is expected to cost billions more. And Mohammed has once again topped the list of baby boy names in England and Wales, the second year running at the #1 spot. The name was most popular in 4 out of 9 English regions, according to new figures from the Office for National Statistics. Noah came close second, followed by Oliver, Arthur and Leo. Olivia kept the crown for girls for the 7th straight year, ahead of Amelia, Lily and Isla. Other top 10 picks include Archie, Ivy, Oscar and Florence. No Miriam or Chris or Sam, I'm sad to say. That's it from me. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with me, Christopher Hope, and the great Miriam Case, in for Andrew and Bev, who aren't here.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what you've been saying on Your Say. Lots of comments about this fascinating debate about Surveillance Britain and the cameras. Really interesting comment from a viewer called Jazzy Moss, great name. All very well, but when the criminals wear scarves and masks, how can you catch them? And I think this is a very good point. We know that there are lots of people, delivery drivers, etc. There are other delivery companies available, cycling around London with masks on, and lots of people suspect this is because of visa fraud. They don't want to be identified, the fact that they shouldn't be in the country, and so they just wear masks.
They may have COVID.
Indeed. Actually, COVID did legitimise the mass wearing of masks. You're absolutely right.
I mean, the issue of in the old days, in the noughties and 2010s, I remember people from Southeast Asia coming here. You see them on the underground wearing masks and the idea then was they didn't want to give you their illnesses.
Well, also they'd had quite a lot of incidences of bird flu in that part of the world, and they'd got used to wearing the masks.
But the masks have been normalised, I think.
I agree.
And I think that's, it's one of the issues why people wearing them on a delivery bike.
Yeah. Well, potential criminals and civil rights campaigners may just start wearing masks in order not to be recognised, then would we be looking at banning on face coverings? It's all becoming very authoritarian very quickly, Chris.
Yes, and I think that people just want to be safe. I think the flip side of this, there's no question, I think the ship has sailed on privacy. I mean, if someone's sitting here looking at their phone and doing this, I sometimes worry they're filming you by mistake. I don't know if they are.
Purpose. Yeah, and that's the thing. We're all rightly suspicious and sceptical about how big state will use this, but most of us give all of our details and all of our facial features to the tech companies many, many times a day. So
I know. And we trust them, don't we, Miriam? OK.
Well, I don't know. I think we just don't think about it enough, probably. Anyway.
Now, elsewhere, of course, travel summer chaos for holidaymakers as they've got lots of days of delays after flights were grounded across the UK yesterday afternoon.
Yes, apparently it was radar issues that caused a nationwide shutdown of airspace, and that was a failure at NATS, which is the main air traffic control provider, and it particularly affected London's Heathrow and Gatwick airports.
But this isn't the first incident involving the air traffic control provider NATS and their CEO, Martin Rolfe, who is meeting today with Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary. He is facing calls to resign.
Well, we're joined now by former airline pilot and aviation expert Emma Henderson. Emma, welcome to the programme. Thanks for joining us this morning. Can you just talk us through exactly what happened yesterday and why that led to this disruption?
Yeah, so basically all aircraft that fly in and out of this country, are all around the world actually, are controlled using radar. So they're able to see aircraft, air traffic controllers are able to control the flow of aircraft into and out of airports to just make sure that you're not getting bottlenecks when you're coming into land. And if there is any sort of bottleneck, then they'll put you into a holding pattern, which lots of people will be familiar with. But they need to rely on radar to be able to make that happen. And if that radar system fails, as it did yesterday, they can't see anybody. So they're relying then on aircraft to report their positions in the sky, which is not feasible when you've got that much traffic flying in and out of a really small area of busy airspace. So the safest thing to do at that point is to just stop all movements. And it's really inconvenient for everybody and it's really awful, but that is the safest thing to do, is just slow down the flow of traffic, stop everybody from taking off and landing until you know what's actually going on. And that's what they did. And of course, I mean, we know it was only 20 minutes, but it's had a huge knock-on effect.
Emma, I've got a statement just arrived here from Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary. It says that the CEO, Martin Rolfe, has met now with her. He provided more detail on yesterday's technical fault, but this is what the government says. This was an isolated event, they say, and there's no evidence of malign activity. There was some speculation that maybe a foreign power was involved, maybe Russia, a country that might wish us harm. It's clearly a mistake by NATS themselves, and this must put more pressure on Martin Rolfe, the CEO of NATS, to resign.
Well, I think that's really interesting because, yeah, of course, when something like that happens, you want to rule out any kind of foul play. And of course, we must make sure our country is protected in that way. But I think it's interesting, this idea that if something goes wrong, we've got to get rid of the top person. I think he should stay and sort it out and not get his bonus this year, maybe. Why get somebody to leave a position when actually, arguably, he's the most qualified person to stay and sort it out? I think it's a distraction at a time when NATS needs to be looking at resilience and backup systems and making sure that the service they are providing is fit for the amount of air traffic we have coming in and out of the country now. As you know, everybody wants to fly everywhere all the time.
Yeah,
great, but actually we are a small island. We have a limited amount of airspace. That service needs to be provided efficiently. I think he should stay, not resign.
Do you think the NATS technology systems are as up-to-date as they should be? Certainly there's some speculation that they have not renewed their technology as quickly as perhaps some of our European rivals. And, of course, those budgets are actually set by the government through the Civil Aviation Authority. Do you think NATS actually just needs more investment?
I think it does need more investment, but you can only do the things you can with what you've got in front of you, can't you? So they can't spend money they don't have. And absolutely, the system has been upgraded considerably certainly over the years that I was flying. we saw things like automatic messages coming through to the aircraft to give us basic heading instructions or descent or climb instructions rather than talking to a person, which frees up space on the airwaves. You don't have to wait to speak to someone to get your instruction. You just answer it on a digital box in the aircraft. That was a game changer for us. But actually, of course, we need to make sure we're investing in that and making sure it's as up to date as possible, because there's only going to be more demand for air travel and we just can't fit more aircraft into the sky. So we've got to make sure we're as efficient as possible with what we've got.
But just on that, we can't actually reroute them, can't we? Find new routes. The sky's a big place and they go down the same lanes in the sky, don't they? Why not have different ways to fly around over our country?
Well, there are lots of different ways to do that, of course, but the traffic we're talking about yesterday has to take off and land around London. And that's the problem, is when the French air traffic controllers and Spanish air traffic controllers go on strike, there are different routes we can take to go down the outside of Spain to get to places like the Canary Islands, for example. So there are alternatives, but the problem comes when you've got such a congested amount of airspace. You've got Stansted, Luton, Heathrow, Gatwick, all sharing the same airspace, and there is a limited amount of ability to get aircraft in and out of that area.
Emma Henderson, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your expertise this morning.
Thank you very much, though. It's the final week, of course, of our competition, the big giveaway. You can become £54,321 richer, 54321, in our biggest cash giveaway to date. The lines close tomorrow, Friday the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. Here's all the details you need to enter.
Lines close tomorrow on your chance to win big. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Her person.
In some breaking news, as I said moments ago, the Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander has said she's spoken with the NAT CEO Martin Rolfe, who gave her further detail on yesterday's technical fault. Now, Heidi Alexander says this was an isolated event and there's no evidence of malign activity, but this must put more pressure on Martin Rolfe. It's another mistake by NATS in 2 years.
It's a different era, though. I mean, I'm with Emma Henderson. I don't think he should necessarily go. Do you know what is also quite interesting about air traffic control? Is how many experienced people resign, not just in Britain, but across Europe. It took early retirement during COVID because people thought the airline industry would never bounce back. Now it's bounced back to greater than pre-COVID levels, and they can't get the people with the experience. So that's not an easy problem to solve.
And these jobs are so important.
They are. I mean, the concentration levels that must be required, I couldn't do it. I really couldn't do it. I'd get distracted.
OK, up
Very
next,
bad news.
The most popular baby names in Britain have been released. Sadly, there's no place for Christopher or Miriam on the list.
Oh, dear.
Let's find out who's topping it next. You're with Britain's Newsroom. We're with you all day on GB News.
GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11:23. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK with Christopher Hope and Miriam Cates.
Absolutely. We're now joined by broadcaster and journalist Carol Malone and political commentator Jonathan List here in the studio to discuss the papers. Shall we start with the Ozzy Osbourne funeral yesterday? This has stirred people's hearts. Were you a fan, Jonathan?
I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of his music. I'm a huge music lover, but that's not quite my genre, I have to say. But I completely understand. I completely understand why so many people loved him, and I thought it was absolutely amazing that he got that final performance in sort of 2 weeks before he died, almost as though he knew that was going to be the end. He just wanted to get that final swan song in, and then he was ready to go. But obviously, it's just, I think it's very touching. Saw the photos and people coming from all over the world to attend, and that's just it's a beautiful send-off.
Carol, did you ever meet Ozzy Osbourne? I actually did meet him once.
No, I've met Sharon lots of times, and you know, she was always busy with Ozzy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, that funeral yesterday, I'm a bit like Jonathan. You know, it wasn't my kind of music. However, there were more than 40,000 people turned out in Birmingham yesterday, which is his hometown, and there was a great headline in one of the papers today and said the funeral was like Diana's but with heavy metal, which I thought was which is a great line. But you know, looking at Sharon Osbourne there, it's going to be tough for her. She was being held up by her three children, and she just looked broken. You know, they'd been married for 43 years, been together for 50 years plus, and she just looks absolutely broken there. Interestingly, their daughter Amy, who was not in the spotlight at all, I looked at her and it's terrifying. She's terrifying. It's amazing. She's the mirror image of Ozzy. It's like the reincarnation of him. Just look at her face. She's just so like him. It's incredible. But
I met them both. They gave my wife Sarah a Pride of Britain in 2017.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they came on. And he was quite, didn't say much, and she was lovely. I mean, but that was sort of the back end of Ozzy Osbourne when he was a reality TV star, wasn't he?
Well, there's far too much agreement, so I think we should switch to a more controversial story.
Well, should we talk about the story that's on the front page of a couple of the papers then, about the recognition of Palestine and the very strong views that are coming on either side of that, because you've got two sort of stories, if you like. The first one is that there seems to be a momentum now among the G7 countries where there is the sense that Israel has just gone so far that Western G7 countries need to act. So you had Macron saying that France would recognise a Palestinian state. Then you had Starmer coming out with a slightly strange a statement which offended a lot of people, saying that he would do it if Israel and the Palestinians sort of met certain conditions. What happens if they don't?
Well, it's only actually Israel meets certain
conditions.
Well,
I think they say that Hamas can't play any more role. So what happens if Hamas doesn't do anything? Are they still going to recognise it? And now you have Mark Carney in Canada saying that Canada will recognise it. But then you've also got the other side, which is a freed British Israeli hostage, accusing Starmer of moral failure.
It's not just the freed. It's not just Emily Damari. It's a lot of the victims of October the 7th have come out and said that Starmer, can't recognise a Palestinian state until every hostage is free, and they have a point. And it's Emily Damari made a very moving statement, and she just said, recognising Palestine as a state is like rewarding the Nazis after World War II. And it's kind of, she's got a point. This is a girl who has lived, she has seen what's gone on there. She knows, and it makes me really angry that MPs in this country are pressurising Starmer to do this. And he's saying he will do it if Israel doesn't stop what they're doing. You either believe in a Palestinian state or you don't. But there's no. Well,
actually, I do absolutely agree with Carol on that point. I think it was completely wrong to attach conditions to it, and there's no leverage. I suppose Britain is desperate to try and exert whatever leverage it has, but actually, it's doing it entirely the wrong way. Britain could stop all arms sales to Israel, for example. That's something that great lefty Margaret Thatcher did back in the 1980s. It could even announce some sanctions. I mean, what Israel is doing is so abhorrent that there needs to be a bigger response.
It also is meaningless in terms of it's just a way of virtue signalling your side in the debate, which, that's politicians' right to do so. Yeah. But a number of senior lawyers in the House of Lords today have written to Lord Hermer, of course, the Attorney General, saying what you're doing is against international law because Palestine or the West Bank and Gaza do not meet the conditions of statehood under the 1933 Convention. I think it was signed in Montevideo or somewhere random like that. And so basically saying what Starmer's doing is against international law. So it's quite ironic.
We know that actually it probably won't be because he's not going to do it. Starmer never does anything. That's the point. I
think it would be incredibly difficult for Starmer if he's made this announcement and then he doesn't do it. That would make it look even more ridiculous.
Let's look at facts here. The manifesto from this government said last year they are committed to recognise a Palestinian state, right? So the voters in this country voted this government in on a policy to recognise Palestine. So it's about timing. Is the timing right? They're following France last week. They're following MPs saying you should do this as soon as you can. But this country voted for a party that would recognise Palestinian statehood. So why is everyone so surprised when they do it? Is it the timing issue?
I don't know why that matters. This government said a lot of things about a lot of things.
It's in the manifesto, Carol.
I know, but there's a lot of things in their manifesto which they have completely rowed back on, completely disregarded, U-turned, all the rest of it. So the fact they said it in their manifesto has been rubbished a million times.
And also the manifesto came after the 7th of October. Yes. So this is not sort of a pre-7th of October.
He's only doing this because he's getting pressure from his MPs.
Which is fine, that's how parliamentary system should work.
He is being led by the other influences, it seems. Yes. That's why I think it's definitely true.
But I think a lot of people in this country are very upset about the shocking rise of anti-Semitism because of what's happening.
OK, but Carol, I think a lot of people are also very, very upset about seeing pictures of starving children on the front page of the Daily Express.
Jonathan, though, is how will recognising Palestine as a state, in theory, stop that? And I think some people, even who are completely against Israel, would still see that now Hamas have got no incentive to give up the hostages. It's in their interest that the war continues past its deadline. That's when they'll get their reward.
Hamas, I think that Hamas, I mean, obviously, I think Hamas is a disgusting organisation, but the signs are that they have negotiated for a ceasefire, and Israel, the Israeli government, have dragged the Israeli government is the one that broke the ceasefire that existed
What's happening is the government,
Netanyahu's own personal interest, as you know perfectly well.
Is forcing a two-state solution that both parties, major parties in this country, have called for. Is it the right time for this, or is it going to create more and more problems?
When is not the right time? And by the way, we talk about the hostages, and of course the hostages need to be released. But the Israeli ministers have said over and over again that is not going to be the end of the war. That is not what they want. They want to make Gaza part of Israel. They want to annex it.
Shall we move on to something that might be equally controversial? We've had the announcement of the most popular baby names in Britain last year.
I was hoping you would talk about the Queen Mother's drinking. And
really on the topical.
Let's say the Queen Mother's drinking. This is a biography that's just come out by a very eminent biographer. She's called, I've forgotten her first name, but her surname is Seacrest. And what she is saying is, we're all used to seeing the Queen Mother in days gone by. She was a big fan of gin and Dubonnet. She drank a lot of it. Her family had a reputation as being very hard drinkers. And now they're saying that hard drinking throughout her pregnancy could be to blame for giving Margaret a disability, an emotional disability, an ability to handle her emotions. And it's called fetal alcohol disorder. This is a huge thing. The author of this biography is a Pulitzer Prize nominated biographer, and it's causing huge, waves in royal circles, because it kind of, the Queen Mother has always been this kind of smiling, beneficent, lovely old girl to us, but we're hearing about the levels of her drinking, which are...
Well, people didn't necessarily know about fetal alcohol syndrome in the 1930s, in the same way that lots of women smoked without realising the dangers to their kids. So I don't think we can blame
I think pregnant women were told to drink Guinness, weren't they? Because it's got everything you need, including vitamin B12.
Yeah, but not a lot of gin and Gibonnet.
No, probably not.
which is what she liked.
Well, thank you both for a review of the papers. Great to see you both in the studio. Thank you. But here's your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. The top story this hour. Canada has joined the UK and France in pledging to recognise a Palestinian state if conditions are met. The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, insists Hamas must be excluded from power. 5 Conservative MPs are demanding an urgent meeting with the Home Secretary as concerns mount over the growing use of asylum seeker hotels. Suella Braverman warns it could overwhelm public services after nearly 900 migrants crossed the Channel just yesterday. Ryanair and EasyJet are among airlines demanding air traffic control reforms its service after what the airlines have described as an outrageous disruption. Over 150 flights in the UK were grounded after a radar glitch. It's the second major failure in less than a year. Junior doctors are set to return to talks with the government after a 5-day strike. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says no more pay talks, but working conditions will be discussed. Jess Glynn has slammed the White House for using her hit song Hold My Hand in a video promoting deportations, calling it sick. The viral Jet2 holiday advert, which has been used in millions of TikToks, has faced backlash for being used in a political context. And Mohammed has claimed the top spot for baby boys' names in England and Wales for the 2nd year running. For girls, Olivia reigns supreme for the 7th year. Other popular names include Archie, Ivy, Oscar and Florence. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you at midday.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
And we're back now, up at noon. Good afternoon, Britain, with Tom and Emily. What's on your show, you two?
Well, the Office for National Statistics each and every year brings out the popular baby names and indeed the less popular baby names. Now, we've had a look through the list, and sadly for one Prime Minister, the name Keir has for the first time dropped off the list of baby names. The ONS has not registered a single baby Keir. There could have been one, but they only register the names if there are 3 or more. Interestingly, however, the name Nigel is back up in the fray. So while Keir is down, Nigel is up. I wonder if that tells us anything about politics.
Yeah, and Mohammed, very popular. Perhaps I'll have a little baby Mo or a little baby Olivia. That's the top girl's name, isn't it?
It is indeed. And that would be fitting, given Olivia Utley of this parish is clearly... But the name Olivia has been at the top for the girls' names for a very long time now, as has the name Mohammed for the boys' names. Although I do think it's slightly cheating, because they amalgamate all sorts of different spellings of the name Mohammed, and a lot of children who have the first name Mohammed actually go by their second name.
And there aren't any just one spelling of the Mohammed has topped the charts.
But there aren't.
But
it's interesting that there must be a huge proportion of Muslim baby boys are called Mohammed, whereas I don't know what the most popular girls' names are, but they haven't made the list. So it must have a much greater variety, mustn't they? But it's amazing how you can.
Miriam's not featured, I don't think.
No, and never has been. But there are some names that do come in and out of fashion. Like I think pretty much all Davids were born between 1950 and 1975. I mean, it's incredible. That's why everybody knows a Dave, as they say. But I'm married to a Dave. But there are other names that never are particularly popular, but always kind of have this.
Well, if I have a son, maybe it could be a little baby Nigel. A little baby Nigel.
There's a George in there, number 6, and there's Noah at number 2, Arthur, Leo.
Noah has had a very strong resurgence over the last 10 or so years. I don't know where Tom is. Tom was huge in the 90s, but I think we've somewhat slipped down.
New Testament names in the 90s. We've gone back to the Old Testament names now, haven't we?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Isaacs, I know a few.
But the girls' names, Florence, Freya, Poppy, Ava, Elsie.
Abraham.
Probably a good one.
Amelia, Isla. Yes, I mean, there's lots of beautiful news to choose from, but we just got to test. We've got a lot more coming up on the show as well.
It's not just the baby name show. There will be news. There will be a lot of news.
Yeah, we are, of course, going to be looking at this striking increase in the population. Absolutely amazing, isn't it? Well, we probably knew it was coming, but we're going to get some more deep dive information on why this has happened and who's coming in.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, we can't wait for that show. Sounds great.
Absolutely. That's coming up at midday, but still ahead on Britain's Newsroom. Find out about the support that the Prime Minister is providing. The backbone of Britain are small businesses. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's quite warm and humid across the south today, and there is a Met Office yellow thunderstorm warning in place. Not everywhere in the warning area will catch a downpour, but where they do occur, they could cause some problems with a lot of rain falling in a short space of time. This weather front is the main focus for those thundery showers. We've already seen one or two, and continued risk through the afternoon across these southernmost counties of England in particular. As I said, hit and miss, but where they do occur, a lot of rain could fall in a short space of time, potentially giving some local flooding. Further north, well, a few scattered light showers, many places dry, cloudy, and a little fresher than yesterday, and still quite warm and humid across the south. Now, as I said, these downpours will continue into the evening. Parts of East Anglia down towards Dorset. That's the main area at risk, but not everywhere in that zone will catch the downpours. But as I said, where they do occur, they could cause some local flooding, certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. A few lighter showers across northern England, the odd one coming into Northern Ireland and westernmost parts of Scotland. And staying pretty grey across the far northeast with thicker cloud and rain and drizzle at times, just edging back up towards the Northern Isles. Now, as we go through the evening time, the thundery showers across the south should tend to fade away. That warning is in place until 9 o'clock this evening. Then we'll see thicker cloud returning to some parts of northeast England, the odd little bit of showery rain here and there, and a few showers continuing to feed into northern Scotland. But many places becoming dry overnight, temperatures dipping down into the low teens for most of us. On to Friday's weather, and generally a drier day across the south. Still not completely dry, quite cloudy in eastern England. Some light rain and drizzle at times on the coast, and inland we'll see some showers breaking out from northern England down across the Midlands towards the southeast. Not as heavy as today's, and many western areas will stay dry and bright with some sunny spells. Temperatures mostly high teens or low 20s.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 12. You're still watching Britain's Newsroom with Chris and Miriam.
Last night was the 14th annual National Reality Television Awards, where shows including Love Island and The Traitors were up against each other for a big showdown.
And GB News also scooped up another award. And joining us now is GB News entertainment editor Alex Davis to tell us all about it. Were you there, Alex?
I was indeed. I was on the red carpet speaking to the stars who had attended the another night of glitz and glamour. Yes, you might not have thought that GB News would be up for an award at the National Reality TV Awards, but in the best news category, we saw off the likes of ITV News, BBC News, Sky News, Good Morning Britain.
Wow.
Once again, and another lovely point about this is that it's voted for by the public. You know, we had the success at the Trick Awards not too long ago, which was also publicly voted
there it
for.
is.
Wow. And yes, GB News Breakfast, there you go.
Which Mira and I both present sometimes.
I don't think we can quite take credit for this, Chris.
No, we do.
That's what I heard. I thought I heard all of the votes.
I don't think it was us. I think it was Ellie and
To be honest, if you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, you deserve an award.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, like I say, it's another great achievement for the channel, and just shows the backing from the fans, especially when there were other awards like Amanda Holden won Best Reality TV Judge, Anton Deck obviously won Best Presenter because they do it every awards show. The Chase won Best Game Show. There was Linda Robson won the Lifetime Achievement Award. There she is. She spoke to me on the red carpet. That's going to be going out on
Chris Biggins there. He's obviously a fan of the Breakfast Show.
Oh, Chris Biggins saw the GB News microphone and darted straight over for a chat. But all of these interviews, that's Maya and Armani from The Traitors. These are all going up on gbnews.com later on.
Well, listen, so we must thank our viewers, mustn't we, Miriam? It's all down to them. It's you guys listening at home, watching or listening, wherever you are. Thank you. Without that, we wouldn't get the credit for those awards. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Were there any surprising awards?
There were some surprising dresses, I can tell you that much, and some surprising looks. On the red carpet, we've got some footage from the red carpet of some of the more eye-catching ensembles. I just went for a white T-shirt and jacket, where this...
what's it say on his T-shirt?
That says...
It's very
I think it's like gay, Muslim and proud, that says on his shirt. That's a man from Towie.
Right.
There was, like I say, certainly some statement pieces last night. A lot of the cast of Married at First Sight, Love Island, The Traitors, Glow Up, these, well, naturally reality TV shows were there. But there were some other big names there, like I said, Biggins and Linda Robson and Vanessa Phelps stopped for a chat and stuff like that.
Good.
And like I say, it'll all go up on the website later on today. But the big takeaway that we should take from this is GB News, once again, another award.
Very exciting.
We've got a groaning mantelpiece here at GB News. Thank you. Great to see you.
Alex, thank you very much. Well, moving on now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Quite a messy picture across Europe at the moment. Some places will have decent dry weather, but there is also some heavy thundery rain around. Temperatures across parts of Greece and Turkey not as high as they were to start the week, but nonetheless still pretty hot. And with that hot air, we are seeing some hefty showers. Could be some thunder also across parts of northern Italy, and some fairly frequent showers across central parts of Spain. A few showery bursts across the Canary Islands as well. Otherwise, a lot of dry weather, and more dry weather to come into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
OK, the PM, Sir Keir Starmer, is telling big business, pay up or face the consequences.
Yes, in a major late payment crackdown, firms that keep suppliers waiting could be fined millions of pounds.
We're joined now by the Chief of External Affairs at the Federation of Small Businesses, Craig Beaumont. Craig, welcome to Britain's Newsroom. I mean, governments have been saying literally for decades they're going to crack down on late payment. I mean, big business doesn't pay on time. Why are you guys being picked on?
Absolutely, and this is, congratulations on your award. And I think another good, you just reported on, another good bit of sunshine today. We're in Swindon. It's a bit grey and rainy and a bit dull, but my God, there's some good news. So large businesses pay small businesses late. It's right across the economy, and it's time for that to stop. And so we are really pleased with today. Today, the government has agreed to legislate to stop that from happening. So there will be penalties for big businesses that do this. There will be transparency in the annual reports about what they do. So we're really pleased. Finally, we've got a government that will do it. Before, we've had governments who've sent the right noises but haven't actually legislated. So we've finally got there.
Now, Craig, my husband and I used to run a small business, and this was just so familiar to us. You send out an invoice. On the bottom, it says payment terms within 30 days, and yet they'll stretch it to 60 or even 90. And for you as a small business, that cash flow is absolutely vital. But where do you go as a small business? You could try and pursue them through the small claims court, but then you'll never get business from them again. What material difference then will this make? How will the law change?
Yeah. So Small Business Moment can send another invoice through for late payments based on interest rates, and no one does it. No one uses it. That power hasn't been used. So what we will see is the Commissioner being given the right to fine persistent late payers. So these big, scary companies that have massive legal budgets suddenly have to pay thousands, hopefully even more, if they consistently do that to a small business like yours. But also, every large company has an audit committee. These are important people, but we haven't managed to get payments under the audit committee, and that is something that will change from this legislation coming in. So now that audit committee of a big company will say to the chief financial officer, who's the one who's behind the problem, will say, so where are we on late payments? Why are we taking longer to pay than our competitors? What is your plan? And that for me is the dream. You're kind of embarrassing the chief executive and anyone who's pushing late payments that they no longer can and should. So we'll see a cultural change, basically.
And so, Craig, will the government be naming and sharing late payers so we can name them on GB News? You can talk about them. We can try and hold them to account.
Well, hopefully, yeah, because small businesses are a bit nervous. But one I'm naming today is Anheuser-Busch, who makes Budweiser. They pay in 150 days. So if you do some, you could spend 6 months chasing for payment. And small business owners, you've got loads who watch GB News. They should be out there creating jobs. They should be out there, innovating, doing good stuff. They shouldn't be on the phone desperately trying to get payments so their company can keep going. So hopefully this is the beginning, this government is doing some difficult things in some areas, but this is really good. And I think GB News, I know that this is in your wheelhouse as well. Let's get all the small businesses growing by, let's say, 1% each, and it would make a massive change to the economy.
It's really, really good news. I'm glad we can celebrate something that the Labour government has done. Now, obviously, small businesses will have some restrictions that they can abide by. I assume is 30 days still going to be the kind of yardstick for this, or can small businesses reduce the payment term?
Well, we're trying to get it smaller. FSB, we're a medium-sized company, and we managed to pay in 11 days. And obviously that's because people like me in the company are going, how do we get there? And my chief exec is really behind it, and all the members who are on our board are really behind it. So we need that kind of culture to compete for good practice. So 30 days becomes the new, if you like, the minimum wage equivalent. It's the statutory extreme. So they'll start at 60 days, move to 45 days, and then finally we'll be at 30 days. And that's where we want to get to. So we know small businesses who pay instantly. And that's what we need. Finance departments getting an invoice, worried about it, and go and pay it. That's the kind of culture. And then small businesses, we know when they're paid promptly, they will then pay their suppliers promptly because they see the importance. And that's the kind of virtuous circle of culture we're trying to get here. And I'm sure GB News pays their suppliers quickly too, right?
Oh, we do. I mean, the frustration, I think, Craig, is that, I always pay a plumber or someone coming to our house within a week or so. I mean, why on earth big companies should feel they can wait 6 months, as you say? It seems crazy.
It's not fair. It's absolutely not fair. And, we've got 5.5 million small businesses in the country. We used to have 6 million. We lost 10% of those during COVID. In order to build them back, you need to know what your cash flow is going to be, that you're going to be paid. And what we need to stop is a small business. We lose 50,000 a year because they don't get paid fast enough. It's about 11 billion missing in the economy. That's what the government's figure is today. And we're going to take that figure and go 11 billion pounds. Tax is difficult, employment's difficult, but my God, get paid promptly.
And if small businesses still aren't successful in getting those invoices paid, what rights do they have under the law? What ways can they pursue the money?
Well, they can raise it with the Small Business Commissioner. We've got a new commissioner, Emma Jones, who's just taken over. So, contact Emma. I'm sure she'll be very happy with me saying that. And they have the right to investigate. The legislation will actually toughen it. They'll make it mandatory for the big company involved to speak to her and talk about it. So your case can be taken up. There's someone to go there. And then there's other things they can do. So at the moment, we've got some bad things that people are doing. They're borrowing money. They're using a credit card. They're trying desperately to find cash from friends and family. So what we'd love to see is more easily gettable finance anyway. And the British Business Bank money for more startup loans and underwriting bank loans is great. But the banks are adding personal guarantees to loans at the moment. So one thing we're really hopeful in the strategy is that will stop. So if you're a small business and you want to go and get a loan, your house is not on the line, and that is stopping people from borrowing money.
Good news. Craig Beaumont,
Absolutely. Fantastic
news. Really good to end on some good news this morning. Chris, well, I think we've managed our supply teacher duty almost to the end. We've got Tom and Emily up next, but it's goodbye from Britain's Newsroom.
That's right, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. And next, Tom and Emily, great show coming up.
Certainly will be. 700,000 more people in this country at this point as opposed to a year before. With the population growing quite so quickly, the question is, who are these people that are making for such a larger country?
Absolutely. And in other news, we're going to be heading to Waterlooville, a village in Hampshire, where they are the latest protests that have taken place against migrant accommodation. We'll be there live. We'll speak to the local councillor. So stick with us.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Quite warm and humid across the south today, and there is a Met Office yellow thunderstorm warning in place. Not everywhere in the warning area will catch a downpour, but where they do occur, they could cause some problems with a lot of rain falling in a short space of time. This weather front is the main focus for those thundery showers. We've already seen one or two, and continued risk through the afternoon across the southernmost counties of England in particular. As I said, hit and miss, but where they do occur, a lot of rain could fall in a short space of time, potentially giving some local flooding. Further north, well, a few scattered light showers, many places dry, cloudy, and a little fresher than yesterday, and still quite warm and humid across the south. Now, as I said, these downpours will continue into the evening. Parts of East Anglia down towards Dorset. That's the main area at risk, but not everywhere in that zone will catch the downpours. But as I said, where they do occur, they could cause some local flooding, certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. A few lighter showers across northern England, the odd one coming into Northern Ireland and westernmost parts of Scotland. It's staying pretty grey across the far northeast with thicker cloud and rain and drizzle at times, just edging back up towards the Northern Isles. Now, as we go through the evening time, the thundery showers across the south should tend to fade away. That warning is in place until 9 o'clock this evening. Then we'll see thicker cloud returning to some parts of northeast England, the odd little bit of showery rain here and there, and a few showers continuing to feed into northern Scotland. But many places becoming dry overnight, temperatures dipping down into the low teens for most of us. On to Friday's weather, and generally a drier day across the south. Still not completely dry, quite cloudy in eastern England. Some light rain and drizzle at times on the coast, and inland we'll see some showers breaking out from northern England down across the Midlands towards the southeast. Not as heavy as today's, and many western areas will stay dry and bright with some sunny spells. Temperatures mostly high teens or low 20s.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it.